I don't know how I allowed myself to get to that point. And I can only thank God that I am alive and I survived the ordeals that I put myself through. But I can't blame anyone but myself. I put myself into those situations because I wanted what I wanted. I maintained a year of sobriety. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what that feels like. Never thought that I would ever actually really get sober. When I was in my active addiction, sobriety seemed like a pipe dream, an attainable dream so far in the distance that I would never reach the destination of really being sober and being free from my addictions. But yet here I am in my 12th month of sobriety, coming up quickly on my 1-year anniversary. And I have actually done it. I got longer than a couple of months. It's not simply taking a 2-week break off of drinking for the year. No, I actually I maintained a year of sobriety. First, here on the adjacent doorstep, I talk about addiction recovery and tie in psychological insight. I was addicted to alcohol and substances for over 20 years of my life. Now entering my 2nd year of sobriety, I want to share a bit of my experience as a way of giving back. Let's get into it. So, what does it feel like to be a year sober? Now, some of you might be thinking, a year sober, that's not a long time. And then others might be saying, a year? That's impossible. Now, I know when I was in the thick of my addiction, a year of sobriety, that was like the peak of a dream. That was like the peak of an achievement, an impossible achievement that I would never be able to attain, because looking from the ground up, this 1 year of sobriety feels like 7 years in addiction. I mean, the last 7 of my 20 years of addiction, I was in severe substance abuse. And I feel that those 7 years were so compressed that I don't know where the time went. It feels like a part of my life was drained from me, was taken away from me, that I can never get back. I regret so much not starting this journey to sobriety sooner. And the crazy thing is, I tried to get sober for 6 years. For 6 of those last 7 years of being severely addicted to substances, I tried to get sober on my own, and I just couldn't muster more than 2 months at a time. I think something like 6, 7, 8 weeks tops was my limit for getting sober. And I would always have these bouts of achieving 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, taking a summer off of drugs and alcohol, going on the marijuana maintenance program, or just dabbling with psychedelics, using the natural substances from Mother Earth, right? There's nothing wrong with those. And I always came back to the hard drugs. I always came back to the hard drinking. And it's so clear now in hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. And I was missing a key aspect, and that is fulfillment. See, every time I got sober in the past 6 years, I wasn't doing anything else with my life besides getting sober and using the days of sobriety or the weeks of sobriety as an achievement marker, as something that I can look to as my source of fulfillment in life. And that was my error, that I was getting sober just to be sober, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I had no other direction in life. I had no career path. I had no higher purpose or higher calling or an upward aim. So when I was sober and I had the substances taken away, there was a void left in me, and I was aimless. I was aimlessly wandering in life. And that's why I kept coming back to the drugs and the alcohol, because the void that was left from taking the substances and the alcohol away, the numbing agents, well, I started feeling the pain of everyday existence, right? Feeling the trauma of my past, feeling the sorrow, the grief, right? I never went through proper grieving for lost loved ones, for lost parts of my life, phases of my life that I never properly grieved due to covering up things with drugs and alcohol. Every time something bad would happen, I would just run to the bottom of a bottle, or I, plow myself into a snowbank. So I was never dealing with the realities of life. So being a year sober, I'm now dealing with the realities of life. I'm taking the good and I'm taking the bad. But because I'm a year sober, I have a balanced temperament. I feel that life is much smoother and I feel more in control. So I'm more in control of my emotions, my reactions, and the situations that I find myself in. And looking back into my days of active addiction, situations that the thing that I valued most was I just wanted to get my shit and get out, right? So I didn't care if I was hanging around gangbangers. I didn't care if I was hanging around people who were rolling heavy and performing nefarious acts, doing God knows what to fund themselves and support their habits. The unsavory characters, the situations that would arise from being up on a 5-day bender and emotions are just out of control and there's hardly any neurotransmitters left in anybody's brains. So the slightest thing just sets off powdered keg of gunpowder, right? Because it's a volatile situation and nobody's seeing reality from an objective lens, and things get blown out of proportion and shit goes down and shit happens and people get hurt. I don't know how I allowed myself to get to that point. And I can only thank God that I am alive and I survived the ordeals that I put myself through. But I can't blame anyone but myself. I put myself into those situations because I wanted what I wanted. So I have responsibility and accountability today. And while the highs aren't as high, the lows aren't as low. My life is much more even tempered, and I don't have a problem with that. Now, another thing about sobriety, what it's like to be sober, is accomplishing things and achieving what I set out to do. So knocking goals off of a list, setting goals and achieving them gives me a sense of accomplishment and a feel-good release of dopamine that is natural and sustainable long-term. So day by day, I'm accomplishing goals. Week by week, I'm accomplishing goals. Month by month, season by season, I'm accomplishing these multi-scale, multi-plan level goals. And that's given me a natural sense of fulfillment. And it also releases dopamine in a more sustainable and natural manner. I mean, one of the best feelings I've ever had, one of the best highs I've ever had sober would be I was in class in university out of hundreds of students and we got our term paper back and the professor made a note to announce to the class that only one paper achieved 100%. I look at my score, I've got the 100%. At that moment, a swelling feeling rose up within me, an elation. I felt elated. I felt happy. I felt good. I did something that I stood out, that actually had some value and that my work was appreciated. So the fact that I was the one that got the 100%, that sense of accomplishment and achievement, that gave me such a natural high. That's what I seek to achieve today. I don't need drugs and alcohol. I need achievement. I need accomplishment. I need goals to accomplish, things to do that are in alignment with my higher purpose, my vision, and bringing my vision to reality. So that's one positive benefit of sobriety today, is that I have found something to replace the substances and the alcohol with that is sustainable, long-term, and natural. Another difference I noticed is that I've been working out for years, and when I was in active addiction and drinking, I reached an intermediate stage of lifting weights and I plateaued. I would lift 5-6 days out of the week. I would drink on the weekend. I would go back and I plateaued. And I was plateaued for about 3-4 years. This past year of going into the gym, I've had gains like I've never had in my life. And I'm not a young buck anymore either. I've blown past my plateaus. All of my lifts are higher. I'm maxing out I'm muscle and I'm developing more strength at a faster rate than I was when I was in active addiction. And I wonder if that's because I was drinking and the drinking was inhibiting my gains, maybe the recovery. Maybe I didn't have the energy coming off of a bender on Monday or Tuesday. So that was impacting my ability to push past the plateau. But now I push past the plateaus so easily. And the only thing I know that's different is that now I'm sober So I'm more focused. Maybe I'm more energized. Maybe I have a little bit more knowledge, but I don't think it's that. I think it's because I'm sober and I'm single-minded. I have a single-minded purpose and I'm not draining my body. So physically, what it's like being sober physically is that I feel amazing. I feel great. I feel on top of the world. I feel like I haven't even reached my peak yet. I feel I'm in my prime and my peak might be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, approaching my middle life. So I hope that I can regain those 7 years of the last 20 years of my addiction. I hope I can regain those 7 years back, because that's one thing that still devastates me and is such a powerful regret that I feel, is that I lost those 7 years of my prime to drugs and alcohol, right? I mean, that's something to grieve over in and of itself. So physically, I feel amazing and I'm stronger than I've ever been. Now let's get to the mental effect, the mental acuity. Now, I thought that with the drugs and alcohol I was doing, amphetamines and alcohol together, I mean, I was drinking myself into a stupor, and my memory and my cognition were dropped to such a poor level and capability when I was at my worst point. I mean, I was forgetting names. I could barely think. I remember it would hurt to think sometimes. It felt like I was just erasing parts of my brain, like scrubbing my brain, like I was giving my brain a scrub with the alcohol and the drugs, brainwashing myself. So today, I have my mental acuity back. I wouldn't say I'm as sharp as I was in my teens or early 20s, but I'm pretty sharp. I'm actively using my memory. I'm actively employing memory techniques. The memory technique, the memory palace, or the method of Loki, that works pretty well for me. I can employ that method and I'll remember things that I attach to associations for weeks at a time, months. I mean, I still remember some things that I've used the method for to remember. And also I'm absorbing and comprehending more. And I'm reading more books and I'm understanding better and I'm absorbing more of the information, and then I'm incorporating it. I am incorporating the information into what I already know, into my prior knowledge, and I'm building connections. I'm enhancing my semantic networks. I'm increasing my associations, my memory associations, and this is congealing into like a systematic understanding of the world. And the mental acuity, I would say, is sharpening. So I'm only a year sober, and apparently it takes about 2 years for the brain to recover from severe addiction, abuse. So I have 2 years. Well, I have 1 more year to see some improvement in my mental faculties that I'm looking forward to. But if I have to put it succinctly and shortly, my mental acuity is sharp. It's bounced back. I feel much more flexible, cognitively flexible. I have cognitive flexibility. I'm able to learn. I'm able to apply. I'm able to express. I'm speaking better. I'm watching my words. I'm more conscious of my thoughts, which translate to intentional speech. And that stems from reading and writing. So I'm clarifying my thinking by writing, and I'm improving my knowledge by reading. So these 3 aspects of learning integrate into a systematic whole. And I think I'm developing a system of organization in my mind and using external methods like a second brain and writing things down and creating an organizational system that ideally will facilitate long-term learning and memorization going into the future. So being sober now, a year sober, I'm pretty hopeful for the future. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm positive. This past year, I've achieved a lot. I've accomplished a lot. I've made up for some lost time. I hope that I can make up for even more lost time in the coming year and the coming years. I have a plan. I have a vision, and I'm setting out to achieve that plan and bringing that vision to reality. So I have a good outlook. My outlook has changed. My mind frame has changed. My relationships have changed. And this fire in me, this passion, this drive and a motivation to just output my creations, to output my ideations. Because I feel that when I was in addiction, I lost so much time and I lost the ability to really be creative when I was actively addicted. I snuffed out my creativity. My passion for creativity just dwindled. I used to be a musician, a producer, audio engineer, DJ, drummer, and I lost the passion for creating music. I made an album, I released an album, I put out some releases, played in some cities, and it felt like I was on the cusp of being able to give flight to my music career when the addiction just took over my life and drained all the energy to the point where my creative ember, my creative passion, my creative flame dwindled to an ember. That ember has air to flame and to grow, and it's grown to this fire of passion, of drive, of motivation, of energy, of willpower that pushes me to act on the world and do the things that I've always wanted to do. So that's what it feels like being 1 year sober. It really feels like I'm living a new life. It feels like my life is just starting, that I've been born again, God willing, and I'm starting a new life. And I don't know where that new life is going to take me, but I'm excited and I'm hopeful. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for God that He has given me a second, third, fourth chance to right my ship, to get my rig back on the road, to figure my life out. I can't count my blessings enough. So a year sober, it's been the best year in my life. It's from recent memory. This is the best I felt. And I hope that if anyone out there, if any of you are struggling and have been struggling with addiction and might be in the position that I was in a year ago, throw off those chains. Get rid of your addictions. Take that step. Ask for help. Get help. Do whatever you can, because life is worth it. Life on the other side of addiction is so worth it. So if you like what you hear and you want more, check out this video.